Alrighty. Welcome back, everyone, to our final session in Jakal Nagal today. With us is Ryan Faulds. He's discussing the war on tech talent. Ryan is a technical talent acquisition specialist who has been recruiting in the Perth technology market for the last 5 years. He recruits across data, analytics, cloud, cybersecurity, and IT projects. Pretty much covers it all, I think, for two well-recognised recruitment agencies. He's currently the talent acquisition specialist for Servian, a cloud and data-focused company led by a highly talented team of technical consultants, and he's also one of the current WA chapter leads for the Australian Women in Security Network, promoting connection, support, and inspiration for women in the cybersecurity industry. Please welcome Ryan.
Thank you very much, Dave, and thank you everyone for coming here to watch this today. This is my first DDD conference, first time I've been to one, and first one that I'm presenting at, so please be gentle. Hands up if you've tried to hire a software engineer in the last 12 or so months. Yeah, cool. What about a data engineer in the last 12 months? Cool. And cloud engineers? They're hard, yeah. So this presentation should be pretty relevant for everybody in the room then. My name is Ryan Faulds. You might know me from such places as your LinkedIn message box. I've been recruiting in the Perth technology market for the last 5 or so years across 2 large agencies, applications development, data engineering, data science, DevOps, cyber, and pretty much everything else in between. I started working as a talent acquisition specialist with a business called Servian. So Servian is a technology consulting business. We're a collection of passionate problem solvers, of technology agnostic individuals that like really just working on cool stuff and sharing and sort of collaborating on some of the knowledge that we have. So the Servian brand, it's been pretty well known in the East Coast. We've been around for about 15 years, but the Perth branch has only launched in August of 2021, so it's reasonably new for Perth at least. So the Great War for technology is upon us, and it's been upon us for some time now, but the game has definitely changed. In order to combat closed borders, restricted travel, and just a generally adverse attitude towards changing jobs amid a pandemic, as you'd expect, the Perth technology market has really had to undergo an evolution in terms of talent. And Servian's no different from any other business in the room. You know, the main challenge for a lot of businesses, pretty much all technology businesses in Perth, is how do we attract and retain the best possible talent in the market? As a business, we're still working on this, we're still fine-tuning this process, but there's a number of talent acquisition strategies that we've put in place over the last 12 or so months to grow from a team of 4 to a team of 31 technical consultants working with some of the latest in cloud technology. I walked into the Servian office in August of 2021. I probably didn't do my due diligence at the time and didn't actually realise how small the team was. So I walked into the building and one of the principal consultants said, "Yep, this is it, all 4 of us." Great. So at that point, I knew 2 things. 1, I wasn't going to be made redundant anytime soon. And 2, we've got a lot of work ahead of us. I was essentially tasked with building the Perth team from the ground up. The regional partner at the time had basically said to me, "Look, if you can find a couple of software professionals or DevOps engineers in the first 12 months, great, fantastic." Now, I'd heard along the grapevine that our Brisbane office had gone from 0 to 65 technical consultants in about 3 years. I was not going to let Brisbane beat me. Apparently recruiters, by nature, are very competitive people. So, yeah, look, 12 months later, we've been able to successfully build a team of 31 technical consultants across data engineering, DevOps engineering, cloud engineering, cybersecurity, and software development. So again, why is this presentation relevant to everybody in the room? Well, all we have to do is just look at Seek and look at some of the adverts that are currently advertised. Now, before we get stuck in, let's just take a second to have a look at the Perth market in terms of the Perth technology market. Please keep in mind that this was a study that I did actually with, thank you to the Robert Walters team who helped me with some of the insights. But this is based on statistics that are only available on LinkedIn. So if a person hasn't got their profile on LinkedIn, they're obviously not included in the study. So, according to LinkedIn, we have 3,241 software professionals in Perth. So that's not a whole heap. Much to my disappointment, and probably everyone's disappointment, software developers don't grow on trees. Of the 3,241 software professionals in Perth, in the last 12 months, we've had 749 change job, which is about 23% of the Perth market. 16% of the Perth software professional market identifies female, and the average tenure with any organisation is 1.5 years. This is just a quick breakdown on the actual dynamics of the software dev market. So we've got about 2,000 software developers, about 700 or so senior software engineers, and a couple of other positions in there as well. Let's have a look at data engineers. So again, these stats are only based on what's actually out there on LinkedIn. So you can see here that we've got a total of 263 data engineers, senior data engineers, and other related data professional titles in the market. Of the 263, 94 have changed jobs in the last 12 months, which is pretty staggering. That's 36% of the entire market has moved job within data engineering in the last 12 months. Diversity probably fares slightly better, with 26% of the market identifying as female. And again, the average median tenure with any organisation is 1.5 years. This is a scary one. We've only got 52 senior data engineers in Perth. I feel like there's something wrong with that. But lastly, we'll have a look at another really challenging skill set to hire in Perth, which is cloud professionals. So again, according to LinkedIn, the cloud technology market tells us that there are 253 cloud technology professionals listed on LinkedIn. Of the 253, 69 have changed job in the past 12 months. 12% of the market identify as female. And again, the median tenure with an organisation is 1.5 years. So, what does this tell us about the tech market in Perth? It's pretty tight. It's pretty tight. I think that we can all agree that, you know, we're all hiring these skill sets. They're all very similar sorts of skill sets. We're all doing really interesting projects. So naturally, we're all looking for the same sorts of professionals to help us on that journey. So how do we overcome this challenge? Maths and relationships. So back when I first started in recruitment, my boss at the time, Jodie, hey, she told me that the math doesn't lie when it comes to recruitment. Now, when I was 23 years old and was 6 months into recruitment, didn't really believe it too much. But looking back on it now that I've matured a little bit more, I very much believe that effective recruitment in today's market, especially in Perth, consists of two really key elements, and that is maths and relationships. But Ryan, how does maths relate to recruitment? Don't you just call people up and ask them about opportunities and jobs? It's a great question. So I'd be interested to hear maybe some stats from the people in the crowd, especially recruiters and talent acquisition specialists in the room, maybe at a later date. But look, for the time being, I'm happy to use my statistics with Servian as a bit of an example. So in the last 12 months, Servian Perth has had 1,210 applications across a number of different professions, so software development, data engineering, DevOps, cloud, and cybersecurity. Of those 1,210 applications, we'll take 243 through to the first round of interview. 90% will make it through to the technical exercise that we have, so we get everyone to undergo a technical exercise. And of the 220 that take the exercise, only 118 will pass. 118 will go through to the second round of interview, which is with one of our principal consultants, 61 making it through to the final round of interview. So it brings us to a grand total of 39 being offered and 28 accepting. So what does the maths tell us? So look, let's work it back. Let's look at what does it take to hire 28 talented technologists across a 12-month period. I'll need to speak to roughly 25.521 candidates a week, which is roughly 5 candidates a day. I'll need to interview 5.06 qualified candidates a week, 1 a day. I need to have at least 2.46 candidates at a second round interview and 1.27 candidates at a final round interview. So in order to hire 2 or 3 candidates per month, that's sort of what we need to do in terms of process from an interview and recruitment point of view. Now, if you're wondering, we've got a talent acquisition team, we've got a recruitment team, maybe why are they not looking at or why they're not getting the same sorts of results from my internal team? I'd probably encourage you just to have a look at, I suppose, working it backwards and re-engineering that process, looking at how efficient, how effective that process is, and hopefully the answers should lie in there for you. Now, in addition to this, we've highlighted just how tight the Perth market can be. So we need to really be thinking about how our brand is engaging with those 3,241 software developers in Perth. How am I managing relationships with the 263 data engineers? Or how am I being perceived by the 253 cloud professionals in Perth? So we know what the challenges are. Finding talent's really hard. Through the pandemic, there's been some real constraints around the movement of human capital. And now that things are sort of returned to a level of normality, I don't know about you, but 263 data engineers in Perth, that's just not enough, as according to LinkedIn. So the challenge for us is, how do we open up this talent pool? How do we widen the market that we currently have? So let's explore Interstate Talent. Perth is a pretty cool place to live. Reasonably, I suppose, the standard of living is pretty good. House prices aren't the same as what they are in Sydney. So straight away, I think we've got some really good things going for us as a state. I reckon I would have probably 1 in 10 candidates come through the process that will come from Melbourne or Sydney. And they'll come to us with the reasons of Perth is a great place to live, it's a great place to raise a family, I can afford a house. That's a really good start. In addition to that, let's look at maybe some of the skilled migrants that we could potentially explore. So earlier this year, the West Australian government and the federal government put in place some changes to the legislation around easing of movement for skilled migrants. So the Perth metro region was essentially reclassified as a regional area. So this has really opened the door for a number of different migrants from all over the country who are keen to work in Australia but are obviously limited with regards to opportunities. And it's an interesting thing to think about prior to this. Yes, you could potentially come and work in Perth as a DevOps engineer, but you'd have to go and work in the bush, which wouldn't really make a lot of sense, especially when you're trying to build collaborative teams. So the changes made by the WA government basically enabled priority processing of regional visas, and Perth has now been reclassified as a regional zone. In addition to that, access to regional occupations list, which has obviously been opened out. So there's more jobs that have actually been included on that list of potential employability. So as a result of this, I've found we've had a real influx of people looking to actually fast track some of their visas. In Melbourne and Sydney, people can be waiting upwards of 6 to 9 months for a potential visa. But with the West Australian government sending out invitations to apply for the 190 visa, they really are trying to drive a lot of people, getting across the state or getting across the country into WA. So whilst we're on the topic of international candidates or people relocating, I had a really good, interesting conversation with one of our senior DevOps engineers who's just joined us not so long ago. I was asking sort of about his experience and just a bit of context. So GCP, AWS, like 5 or 6 years of experience, just a brilliant guy. A skill set that is really highly in demand, especially in the Perth market, but really any market. And I was talking to him about his how he felt about our process, and I put the question to him of, were you interviewing with anybody else, any other organisations in Australia when you were looking to make the move? And he said to me that he'd applied for 51 positions, and he'd heard back from 2, which is us, who snagged him, and there was one other organisation in Melbourne. So this is a DevOps and cloud professional who's applied for DevOps and cloud-related positions, and he's only heard back from 2 organisations. So I think this is a really old school way of thinking. We're crying out as an industry for technologists with all these specialised skills, but if you're not in Perth, then sorry, you don't get a look in. In Servian in Perth, we've recruited 5 candidates from all over the world, including Argentina, South India, Guernsey, which is a little island halfway between France and the UK, tiny little place. But yeah, look, it's not really that hard. You get yourself partnered with a really good migration agent who know what they're doing. I can recommend one after this if you would like. We undertake a few processes. You've got to obviously get the right sort of documentation together. You've got to do a market skills assessment, which again doesn't take too long. And you look at obviously the costs as well. And yes, it is a reasonably large commitment by the business. You're forking out about $13,000 or $14,000 for an individual on a 4-year visa, which is a 482 skills nominated visa. But when we look at this, in the grand scheme of things, you break that 14 grand down, it's $3,000-4,000 a year across a 4-year period. Straight away, we also, I suppose we fight back against 2 of the really key challenges that we're facing as an industry, which is broadening out that talent pool outside of just Perth and WA. And we also beat the median tenure with an organisation, because the market dictates people stay with an organisation for 1.5 years. The visa, obviously, we're investing in them, they're investing with us for a period of about 4 years or so. So it's a really handy thing to look into. Now, this is an important one. Talent attracts talent. So, in order to sort of attract good talent, we need to understand what motivates talent. Now, how do we do this? It's pretty easy. Honest, transparent conversations with our distinguished technologists about what they're doing, what they want to do, and how we can put a roadmap and a strategy together to get them where they want to go. Once we understand, what our people want to do in their experience with the business, we can put these things in place. And we really want to empower them to be ambassadors for our business. Another really important aspect of this is being able to provide a financial incentive. This should always come in a monetary form, and the successful referral of candidates to our business at all levels of seniority attracts an $8,000 referral bonus, which I find is well and truly enough to motivate people to have conversations with old colleagues, and get people to flick me the CV and have just a general conversation. So if we're recruiting for technologists in Perth, whether we like it or not, we're in the Great War for technology talent. The landscape's ever changing, and in order to retain and grow our teams of distinguished technologists, we've got to change with the times. So embracing visas, empowering our staff, and looking at maths and relationships when it comes to recruitment. This is how we've become one of the fastest growing technical consultancies in Perth in the last 12 months. We've got an industry that are essentially crying out for technologists at the moment, and recruiters love telling me, it's really hard to find talent at the moment. I fundamentally believe this statement's wrong. It's actually not that hard. It's challenging, yes, it's not easy at times, but if you actually take the time to think outside of the box, adopt different ways of doing things, and change the way that you're approaching the game, I think you'll be quite surprised by what you find. That's pretty much it for me. I just wanted to say thank you very much to all the sponsors. Today wouldn't be possible without them, so thank you very much, and have a chat with me.
Thank you very much, Ryan. We do have a couple of minutes for any questions for Ryan that the room might have. Are there any questions? Yes.
The biggest green light? I love it when people tell me, throw me at your hardest challenge and I'll come up with a solution. That's a really big one. Like for us, it's about problem solving, It's the ability to be able to break something down and logically work through it to come up with a solution. So that's a really big green light. The other one's sort of passion for what they're doing. So Don't tell me about stuff that you're doing in work. Tell me about the stuff you're doing outside of work, because that's obviously where passion shines through. And communication is the other really key one.
I think some recruiters give other recruiters a really bad reputation, and can we say like not all recruiters? But what do you think it is that makes a really good tech recruiter, and what do you think it is that makes really bad?
Oh, good question. I've met both. I like to think I'm one over the other. What makes a good tech recruiter is someone that's not looking to close a sale. I think that's a really big one. Someone that's not looking to close a sale, someone that's looking to build relationships over the long term, and put the candidate first. That's got to be the main, like the number one thing. And I think that's the trouble with recruitment, because it's recruitment and sort of sales as well. So sometimes the sales aspect can be to detriment of the candidate. What makes a bad recruiter? Someone that doesn't do that. Someone that pings, 100 messages out on LinkedIn just to try and take a bit of a phishing approach. Yeah.
One more. Hopefully this isn't like a curveball, but like a lot of, say, other recruiters who may be constrained financially, and they have a certain budget. In your opinion, how should they? What's the best way for them to like moneyball? Like apportion it correctly. Like apportion it best. Either you can pay someone you can increase the salary, or you can invest in, like you said, offshore agencies, or you can increase your marketing budget, or you can hire an additional recruiter. Like
Best return on investment for driving recruitment.
that's a great way to put it.
Cool. We take the approach of the best candidate is the best candidate. It doesn't matter how they come. We want to try and enable as many channels as possible to open that up. Every business is going to be different. I'm a big fan of investing in the TA team internally. Especially I think if you empower them to be able to do a really good job and engage with the market, a lot of the time, at least from what I've found, they can do the job of 3 agencies combined, because they understand the business just that little bit more, on a little bit more of a personal level. At least that's what I found. When I started at Servian, there was a big shift in mindset from agency to internal. It's not about, okay, I'm going to recruit this position for this business, and then next week it's onto this business. Like the person that I recruit is going to be sitting next to me. So it's a little bit more of a slowed down approach. So it's hard to say. LinkedIn's a big one. LinkedIn's a massive one, at least for me. I reckon at least half of the people that I've actually gone out and sourced have been through LinkedIn. Probably more than half, to be honest.
Okay, we do have one more, but then we have to break for coffee. So
So a lot of the numbers you talked about work on LinkedIn, and I'm just curious, as a software engineer who's been in the industry for ages but never been on LinkedIn, and I'm interested in it. Do you have any, be prepared to make a guess or have any idea what the numbers, those numbers for the not?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I wouldn't know. I'd love to, that's probably the evolution of this, is maybe doing a bit more of a study to unearth how many actually aren't on LinkedIn. It's something I see a lot in cybersecurity as well, is there'll be no trace of some of the best cybersecurity professionals in the Perth market, and for good reason. So, no idea.